Good evening, We by Black family. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to give everybody a couple of minutes to come on into the room. And as you're coming into the room, I want to kind of give you a couple of guidelines. We want you all to remember that we are allowing for you to chat inside of the chat box. So locate the chat box on your computer and or on your devices and say hello to us. Let us know where you're coming from, what city you're in, and anytime you have a question during the presentation, please be sure to write that question in there. We will have our moderator making sure that they are announcing that that is a question. And at the end of the presentation, you will have your question answered. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, August 4th. This is our fourth day of the New Africa August webinar series, and we are so excited to introduce you to today Sheila Harris. So Miss Harris is going to be talking about passion, purpose, and taking charge of your professional path. So as we're loading up this video, again, make sure that everyone knows to use the chat box to say hello and to write all your questions, and give us 1 second. We're going to load that video up for you right now.
Good evening, We by Black family. Welcome to New Africa August. My name is Sheila Harris. I'm an author, speaker, and life coach, and I'm here today to talk to you on the topic, passion and purpose, taking charge of your professional path. First, I want to thank the amazing Christian Newman for inviting me to join you today. And of course, I want to thank the whole We by Black family. It's truly an honor. The first thing I want to do is share my screen with you so we can get started. So let me just do that quickly. Okay, we're going to begin. Revealed 7 spiritual. Good evening, We by Black family. Welcome to New Africa August. My name is Sheila Harris. I'm an author, speaker, and life coach, and I'm here today to talk to you on the topic, passion and purpose, taking charge of your professional path. First, I want to thank the amazing Christian Newman for inviting me to join you today. And of course, I want to thank the whole We by Black family. It's truly an honor. The first thing I want to do is share my screen with you so we can get started. So let me just do that quickly. Okay, we're going to begin. So again, I want to just tell you a little bit about me. There I am. So as I mentioned, I'm an author, speaker, life coach, and I just wrote a book. It's called Calling Revealed, 7 Spiritual Lessons to Uncover Your Purpose. It's on Amazon now, so you can pick up a copy. And just so you'll know, I see it as more of a devotional style type of book, especially for those who are struggling to identify their purpose, whether in their career, the ministry, the professional role, the leadership role, but I take it from a spiritual and biblical standpoint. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. Today I'll weave in some of those points, but I really think it'll be helpful for the topic we're on today. You can definitely order this now. The paperback version will be out soon, but you can definitely do this as we speak. As I mentioned, I'm also a speaker. I've had the amazing opportunity to speak to churches, schools, and amazing organizations such as this. And my goal always is to really teach audiences how to tap into their passions and how to walk into their God-given destiny. So you'll hear that. And then I'm a life coach. Again, I always want to encourage others to be their best at whatever they're doing and whatever they're called to do. Sometimes people just need a little help with that. I know I have needed that help over the years. So I'm hoping that today's session will sort of serve as a coaching session, if you will. So really looking forward to that. Lastly, I've also worked in the PR industry for over 25 years. Don't try to guess my age. I've had the chance to lead really successful publicity campaigns for various top-tiered red carpet events and initiatives and content offerings, as well as for community and faith-based initiatives. So really thankful for that. You can also follow me on Instagram at Sister Sheila Says for inspiring content and maybe for an upcoming course or two. We'll see. So again, I wanted to get started. Again, the topic is passion and purpose, taking charge of your professional path. So I wanted to get to the first slide. And as you can see on the bottom, it says, it's on you. And I wanted to explain how I got there. The reason why I chose this this subtitle, taking charge of your professional path, and key word, taking charge, is because of a conversation I had with an old colleague of mine years ago, and it was concerning our careers. Now, keep this in mind. Again, this can apply to your career, your professional life, your business, a leadership role, anything like that. Now, I can't remember how we got on the topic, but it had to stem from frustrations with not seeing certain things happening on the career track. And I'm sure a lot of you can identify with that. But she brought up to me the fact that we're the ones who are responsible for handling our own career trajectory, not anyone else. And what she said struck me even more so later on, because it really did make sense. It's no one else's responsibility. It's really our own. We have to take charge. And as I said here, it's on you. Now, of course, it's helpful when you have someone who's really looking out for you and helping to shepherd your advances along the corporate ladder, if you will, especially in the corporate world. That's always helpful. And if you have that, that's a blessing. But the reality is that I would say 95% of the time, that may not always be possible or feasible. And that's for a variety of reasons. So if that's not there, what then? I want to put a couple of scenarios in front of you. What happens when your internal champion or partner, someone who you work with, who's looking out for you, let's say, it's been great all these years, and all of a sudden they leave the company or the organization, or maybe they, God forbid, pass away. And when they're gone, you're slowly beginning to realize that you are more aligned with the person than with the mission of the actual brand. Let that sink in. And then it actually starts to show. And what do you mean by that, Sheila? I mean, you just have a general dissatisfaction that's always present on your part. Maybe you have some missteps along the way. And that's not a good place to be in. And as a result, you're in danger of a couple of things. You're in danger of having less visibility, a lack of promotion, those are the least of it, maybe even getting fired. To be honest, you have to think about it. Even if that person wasn't your internal champion, you probably want to be in line with them anyway. And I want you to think about why. Have you ever met anyone who's had a certain type of energy or dynamic that was not only motivating and inspiring, but it just started to rub off on you? And not to mention for the company, I'm sure they impacted the company or organization's bottom line really well too. But that's great to be around, and it's very inspiring, and it just motivates everybody. But most of all, what you could tell is that that person walked in their purpose and their passion. Now, that was great while they were there, but when they left, something inside of you left too. And you realize slowly that you no longer felt passionate about that brand. So that's a scenario right there. Now, another scenario is what happens when you've been with an organization for years and you'd really like to see them progress and position themselves for the future, but they refuse to adjust. Then you get frustrated, mostly because they could be so much more further along. In the meantime, you know that you have a lot to offer to other organizations who are in the same boat, and they actually do want to listen to you. But you realize that you can't just sit on your gift because your purpose is attached to it. So I wanted to show those two scenarios for a reason, because sometimes when those two things happen, there are others, but these are the two I'm going to talk about today, you realize that you may need to make a shift. And why? It's because two very important things are at stake. So in scenario number one, where you're in a corporate setting or someone leaves, things may not be what you imagine at all in your career leadership role. You're not seeing the growth, or you're just not creating impact the way you envisioned when you first joined that company or organization, or when other people were there. And in this case, you want to shift because your passion is at stake. In scenario number two, you may actually be doing well, relatively speaking. And that means the work is getting done, everything is functioning, nothing's on fire today. But then the drive that you had previously is just dwindling, or perhaps it's just gone altogether. And the reason you want to shift in this scenario is because your purpose is at stake. So I want you to examine where you are right now, as far as your professional or leadership position, and ask yourself two questions. Are you passionate about what you're doing? And does this role you're in now line up with your purpose? So I want you to think about those two things. And that, my friends, is what's going to help guide your next choices and your path as far as your professional uh, uh, role, your business, your career. Those two things are going to guide you. Because once you've identified your passion and your purpose, you realize that you can't go back to what you're used to. You may finally decide to launch that business you've been thinking about. Or once you realize it, you may decide to, with your own business that you have, expand your base and tap into a new target market. You may even choose to extend your services to another organization as a consultant. The choice is totally up to you. The world is your oyster. Now, I do want to state that I realize we're in the midst of a pandemic. You know, COVID-19, unfortunately, has not only affected our bodies, but it has also injected a sense of fear into many people as far as their finances, unemployment rates, you know, skyrocketing, everything you could think of, that it's real. I get it. But I do believe that it's important to think about what your life can and should look like after the lockdown is over. And you don't have to wait until that time to do that. If you're watching today, you may feel like you're at a crossroad as far as your professional or leadership role. But don't be discouraged. It happens to all of us at some point, and sometimes more than once. I always feel personally that it's healthy to reevaluate your life along the way. So if this is like the third time you're doing it, that's all good. But my prayer is that you recognize exactly where you are, and that this session will help you to grab the reins and start taking charge of your own path moving forward. So that brings us to passion and purpose. Now, you'll hear me talk about passion and purpose a lot, because I just think it's so important. You may ask, why is passion and purpose so critical to one's life? Well, then let's go ahead and examine the definition of each word and look at what happens when it's present and when it's not. So we have the definition I put here of both passion and purpose. So let's look at the definition of passion. An intense desire or enthusiasm for something, a strong or extravagant fondness, enthusiasm, or desire for anything. That's passion. Purpose is the reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists, an intended or desired result, end, aim, or goal. Now, I want you to keep those two definitions in mind as you think about your own situation. Do either of these apply to you where you are right now? If not, then you really need to ask yourself some questions about what your future is going to look like after this is over. So I want to, again, really stress that. So again, if we're looking at, how do you know when it's time to make a shift? The first thing I'll do is ask you to pay attention to your heart. When you don't have passion or purpose in what you're doing, it shows. Let's read the definitions of both of these words again. Passion, an intense desire or enthusiasm for something, a strong or extravagant fondness, enthusiasm, desire for anything. Do you have that in where you are right now? Purpose, the reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists, an intended or desired result, end, aim, or goal. Do you feel like you're called to what you're doing right now? I just want you to think about that. Again, when you don't have passion and purpose, I promise you, it shows. There are little signs that you find along the way. What are some of those signs? You could be easily annoyed, frustrated, anxious, bored, or worse, too comfortable. Now, once in a while, feeling that way is normal. But if it's constant, and worse, if it's all happening at once, you're annoyed, frustrated, anxious, bored, comfortable, all of it, all at one time, you definitely need to pause for a minute then and really reevaluate where you are. Maybe at one time, this venture that you're in was something that used to bring you such joy, but now it's an effort to even think about being in that position. So sometimes you have to take the hint that's being given to you, and you need to recognize the signs that maybe you're not walking in your purpose or your calling. And in my book that I mentioned earlier, Calling Revealed, I talk about that a lot as well. I want you to keep in mind that you have something that the world needs, but it won't get out there if you won't put yourself in position to share it. So I want to talk about the shift, finding the right time. And we hear about shifting a lot, and I want to kind of break that down a little bit. Okay, so how do you realize that something has to shift. So that's great. But now what? I have to shift, but okay, what does that mean? So as I mentioned, you really need to think about what your future is going to look like after all this is over, and you need to start thinking about it now so you can be prepared. Because usually that process normally isn't overnight. You have to build towards it. Now, before you begin the shift, make sure you thoroughly examine the role you're in right now and that you, as they say, squeeze all of the juice out of that orange along the way. What do I mean by that? So making a big shift is terrific, but if you haven't fully weighed all the reasons why you want to make this move, then you could possibly be back in the same place again, theoretically. So I want to help you a little bit. I want you to ask yourself if you've applied the following criteria to where you are right now before you begin your shift. So I want to talk about three things you should ask. So the first is time. So where you are right now, you're frustrated, annoyed here and there, and you're like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I want you to think about the time. Anything you do, you're going to have to put your time in. It's just a reality. I know there's a mindset out there that believes that we're entitled to have what we want right now, instantly, like a microwave. In some cases, fame and fortune may seem to come overnight for some people, but trust me, you want to savor the gift of time and experience. It will help you in the long run when you're really ready for the spotlight. And then what will happen is your skills and your techniques at that time will be proven and perfected. So I don't want you to sleep on the gifts of time and experience because they are truly invaluable. So again, you're going to ask yourself, did you give this enough time? Okay, that's the first thing. Second, work. You have to do the work. As you see the slide, dreams don't work unless you do. If you're frustrated and want to shift just because there's too much work to be done, I got to tell you, there's no getting around working unless you're next level rich and you can pay someone else to do it for you. That's not you? Oh, well, sorry. There's no way to get around it. A lot of younger people ask me about getting into PR. And I always try to level set with them and prep them and tell them, ignore, what you see on the screen, the red carpet moments. Those only last for a little bit. Don't get caught up with the glam and celebrities and everything else on TV. You have to think about all the things that go into that. There's the lead up. There's a day-to-day tasks that I promise you are not as glamorous as that red carpet. The red carpet is like the final, and then you go into the next thing. I mean, there's a follow-up, there's doing the reports, there's meetings, dealing with different personalities, managing expectations, invoices, expenses. I mean, I can go on and on. So there's always work that has to be done wherever you are. So again, just examine if the work that you're complaining about, is it something that's like insurmountable or is it necessary? So even when I tell younger people that, I don't want to scare them. I just want them to be aware of what's coming. This is what I call the back end work, but the back end work is necessary. No matter what field you're in, what role you're in, you need that. And that's because in the end, you'll have an event or presentation or product that can hopefully impact millions for good. So you don't want to leave just because there's a lot of work. So again, make sure that's not your only reason. And lastly, patience. Not easy. Sometimes you just have to wait. I love this quote I found by Joyce Meyer that reads, "Patience is not the ability to wait, but how you act while you're waiting." Let that sink in. Patience is not the ability to wait, but how you act while you're waiting. That says a mouthful right there. Sometimes you just have to wait. You can reach your goals and dreams, but then ask for patience. Sometimes you may be tempted with another offer that might alleviate your present frustration. Like someone might call you right at the moment where you're just like done with everybody. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is more money, or this is another, get to work with another influencer, whatever it is. And you might say, okay, for a fast satisfaction, I can just do this now. And you might get it done quickly, and you may get away from one issue for the moment, but will you get the bigger lesson that's been assigned to you? Will you be aligned with your purpose in the end? If not, you'll be back at your crossroads again, looking for another big shift. So trust me, I get it. But I want to make sure that you apply those 3 criteria first. There will come a time when you will have to move towards your destiny. And again, I'm not suggesting that you quit your job or position immediately, because pandemic, but I most definitely want you to expose yourself to possibilities that you may not have considered before. And once you reevaluate your situation and options, when the time is right, you can start putting your strategy into motion. Now, my next slide, invest in Team You. And you see the little graphic, invest in yourself. So I want to talk about preparing for your next shift. So now that you've thought about it, you've prayed about it, you've weighed all the pros and cons, you've applied the criteria, you're not rushing, you really thought this through, you have the time, you've waited, and now it's the season to move forward. Now all of that's happened. Okay, so let's get ready for the shift. Now, I just want to give you a heads up. You should always want to better yourself multiple times in your life. And if you're about to shift, that means you want to put the best version of you out there to show up. So I have outlined a few ideas because, again, you have to think of this as an investment. If I'm going to buy a piece of property, a house, I want it to be an investment that's going to last a long time and will bless me later. And the same goes for you. If you're considering a shift and a move, you want to do things to invest in yourself so that it will benefit you later. You're not just spinning your wheels because that's why you're leaving. You don't want to continue to spin your wheels in the area you're in now. So you really need to make sure you invest in yourself. And I wanted to talk about that. So one idea is to learn a new skill or get another degree. Now, I will say there are so many online options available right now, and it's great. And honestly, a lot of them have been discounted due to the pandemic. I don't know if you saw online, there's quite a few of them. You've done the research that are out there, Skillshare, so many. So look into that. Even if you don't feel like doing a whole degree, or maybe you already have your BA and your master's, but maybe there's just one course that might inspire you to take your life in a whole different direction, then look into that. You might have been interested in coding and just never thought to pursue it, but now's the time. You can look into that. So, and that might shift a whole nother stream of income for you. So I want you to think about that. The other point is, don't be afraid to look at other cities, other markets to find your next step. There may be a greater need for what you have to offer in a different place. Just think about it. Sometimes it's right where you are at home, but sometimes it's not. And then maybe even overseas, your skills can be used. Thanks to the internet, that's definitely possible. My point is, don't ever limit yourself. The other thing to consider is teaching. Just sharing what you know and what you experience through a course or lecturing. That process may actually help to reshape how you see yourself. Just a side note, don't chalk up all the disappointments that you've had in your past and the previous role and everything else as a total flop or failure. Someone is waiting to learn at your feet. So, one man's rock is another's diamond, they say. So don't be afraid of that. Like, use it to show someone, some of the missteps you made or just some of the experiences you've had and how they can do it better. It might be a tremendous blessing to them. Just a small testimony, I found myself getting my master's degree a few years back, and I did it all online while working full time. And that was something I just felt like I needed to do. So I got a master's in public relations. Was it easy? Nope. But was it worth it? To me, absolutely. I'm so glad I did it. I'm glad at the time I did it. So those are things to think about. Another suggestion is finding a business coach or a service that will guide you along the way. I want to give a shout out to Kamika Smith of the Boss Network, who's an excellent resource as well when it comes to things like this. But find a business coach, someone who can mentor you. There's a lot of different organizations that are out there, so consider that. I want you also to be prepared. There is a whole ton of information that's out there. So don't try to tackle it all at one time. While there's a lot that's out there that's free, some things may require a cost. So take your time, research what's out there, see what fits you, and then also talk to someone who's been on this new road that you're taking and treasure their advice. I promise you, it may help you to save quite a bit of money and help you from making costly mistakes. I want to say that preparing for your shift may not be easy, but definitely worth it in the long run. Now, many of you have dreams that you think you have to put on the back burner indefinitely, especially with what's going on now. And I want to tell you that, your dream is still possible. You may be on lockdown in your city. Here in New York City, we got hit the hardest, probably the earliest, and it was pretty devastating during that time. But thank God a lot of us pushed through and we're still here and we're just trying to survive so we can get to the other side of it and continue to go into our purpose and destiny. So I want to say, even though we're on lockdown, that doesn't mean your spirit is on lockdown. Go for it. Write your vision, make it plain. And that vision might include a business plan or a new business plan. Who knows, just for you to pivot. But, now's the time, breathe, but also envision what's next. So while we're talking about passion and purpose, as I mentioned, when you don't have it, it shows, but when you have it, it shows as well. So I wanted to share an example of someone who I felt had extreme passion and purpose. So U.S. Congressman John Lewis passed away, as you know. And this week we honored him during his homegoing ceremony. And for me, this is someone who was willing to put his life on the line at an early age for the cause of freedom, not just for himself, but for countless generations after him. Let that sink in. The fact that, he was 23 years old and he went through this and he was willing to dedicate his life to service for others. I mean, he could have sat back on his laurels and say, hey, I've made it, I'm good. Y'all figure it out. But he stayed committed to that. And it was his life's purpose and passion. And you could tell by his staff members who spoke during the funeral ceremony that he passed this on to others. What truly touched me, though, was the New York Times op-ed. I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but he wrote an op-ed shortly before his death, and he asked that it would be run the day of his funeral. And he left us basically a message because he knew the power of passion and purpose. Again, he wanted to make sure that the passion and purpose that burned within him wouldn't just die with him when he left. And I wanted to just share just a small excerpt of the op-ed. He said, while my time here has now come to an end, I want you to know that in the last days and hours of my life, you inspired me. You filled me with hope about the next chapter of the great American story when you use your power to make a difference in our society. Though I may not be here with you, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. In my life, I have done all I can to demonstrate that the way of peace, the way of love, and nonviolence is the more excellent way. Now it is your turn to let freedom ring. I'm just going to let that sit there. That speaks for itself. If there's ever an example of trying to find someone who has passion and purpose, there we have it in that wonderful man. So as I get ready to close, just because this is going on and this is devastating to our country and our world, just remember it is still possible. You can still meet your goals. You can still realize your dreams. You just have to plan for it and just examine what's going on. Don't get too frustrated, as I said in a moment. Don't rush and just say, I'm getting out right now without evaluating, is it time? And then once it is time, prepare yourself for it so that, when the shift completely is happening, you'll be ready and you can bring others along with you. So again, I want you to go ahead and write your vision. Make sure you take the time you need to breathe during this season. There's a lot going on. And like I said, I believe we will get through this. But when we get through, I want to see all of you walking fully in your calling. So as I say here, have a little faith and continue to seek your purpose and passion in all that you do. So I thank you so much for joining me today. Again, you can follow me on Instagram at Sister Sheila Says. Make sure you go to Amazon and download the book, Calling Revealed, 7 Spiritual Lessons to Uncover Your Purpose. And I just want to thank you for being with me today. Here's to your passion and purpose. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Sheila. I am sure that some of you in the audience have some great, great questions ready for her. And we're about to actually bring Miss Harris on because she's in the room with us today. So let's bring Miss Harris on. Make sure everybody, you all say hello. She's going to be answering your questions this evening. So if you haven't written any of your questions, be sure to do so inside of the chat box.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
Hey, Sheila.
Hello. How are you?
I love that blue, honey. You're looking gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. So one of the most important things that I think you talked about is time.
Yes.
Okay. Something that we either have enough of or never have enough of.
Exactly.
Which,
exactly.
Either way, on either end of the spectrum, we're always looking at time.
Absolutely.
And so as we're going through these questions, let me see. We had a couple of people have a couple of questions. Okay, so someone, Minnie, I'm just going to use everyone's first name because we're family. But Minnie said that Congress Lewis did not allow anything to sabotage his passion and purpose. How do you avoid being sabotaged in the midst of your shift?
That's an excellent question. I think the first word that comes to mind in regards to Congressman Lewis or any of us is focus. If you are focused on your goal, no matter what's coming at you, you're going to just stay on the path. This is life. Life's going to hit you from all different directions, whether it's from people, whether it's things that you may go through in your physical body or things that might, hit you from an emotional standpoint. It's going to hit you. But you have to say, I have a goal. In order for me to get from point A to point B, I have to stay focused. If it's A to Z, I have to stay focused in between. And not that it won't hurt at times, but you still have to ask God for grace and strength to just power through until you get to the end. Because you have to remember, it's always bigger than you. I think that's the key.
Right. Excellent. And we have a couple of people, again, remind everyone where to go on Amazon to get your book, because I know that they need that right now.
Thank you so much. So just go to Amazon. It's called Calling Revealed, 7 Spiritual Lessons to Uncover Your Purpose. And for me, it was something that was just, pressed in my heart to write about for various reasons. I mentioned I've worked in the PR industry for over 25 years. And a lot of times I've had to reevaluate my life along the way. And not just in terms of my career, but just from a professional standpoint. I have my hands in a lot of different things, not just at work, but in community and in church and everything else. And I had to always check myself to make sure I was doing things that were aligned with the purpose that God called me into. And that's not always easy because, especially if you're a person who likes to help, sometimes you just want to put your hands in everything, and that's fine for a season. But at some point you do have to really make sure it's aligned with your purpose. And if it is, then go for it. So I hope this book is something that will inspire others to really examine, their walk and their assignment.
Okay. Our brother Chris is asking, if you see an opportunity to fulfill a need, but it's not necessarily your passion, should you move on it or wait for another opportunity?
I think I would evaluate what the situation is. Of course, not everything's for us, but if it's going to benefit someone for the greater good, maybe you can bring somebody else on. Maybe you can say, I'm not a doctor, so if I see someone bleeding, I'm not going to tend to. You don't want that. I'm going to make sure I have somebody else in my corner to say, listen, I see this person is dealing with this particular situation. Do you think you can help them? I find that that's always helpful. You don't have to leave the person. That's not something you want to do. We're supposed to help one another wherever we can, but it may not be a direct touch from you, but you can be a resource. I love being a resource to people where maybe I'm not able to provide, a service, whatever it is, but hey, I know my friend is doing XYZ. Why don't I connect the two of you? And hopefully there's some synergy and something that can come out of it. So Chris, I think it's great that you pick up on the fact that people need help. You just have to find the right resources to direct them to.
Okay, excellent. Our next question is coming from Mr. Antonio. doesn't align with those in your support system.
Okay. I'm going to read the chat because I think I was going in and out. So is it shifting oftentimes requires your support system to shift?
Yes.
I'd be interested to find out from Antonio who the support system is. If we're talking about family, a spouse, things of that nature, that's something that's difficult. I would hope if it is someone who is your spouse, that someone that you're partnering with for life, that going into the relationship, they know that this is something that you're going to want to do at some point in life, so it's not a surprise to them. Now, of course, life happens. So you have to, if a person really knows your heart, you have to say, listen, this may not be something I had on the vision board for us for 2020, but it's really pressing on my heart. Is there a way that we can do this to really help with this, that, and the third? I think it's a conversation. I think, you just have to really recognize your heart, because I think what happens is if it's something that you're passionate about, you're not going to rest until it's done. So you have to find a way to have that person to align with you, even if it's not this season, but at some point, okay, maybe I wasn't able to do this, but babe, I want you to know that this is something that is along the path. How can we factor this in to our budget or to our time at some point in the future? And then I think that would probably go well.
Okay. And I love that, again, coupling time and having that important conversation with really anyone in the support system, of course,
Yeah.
especially those that are really, really close to you. Our next question, Mr. John is asking, how long is too long before it's called or considered procrastination?
That's an excellent question. I don't want to just say that I think you'll know, because procrastination is really tricky. I mean, you just get real comfortable, you just say, or you get scared. And fear is horrible. Fear will have you, what is the saying? Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I'm probably mixing it up, but you can wait so much where you're like, well, I don't have the resources, so I don't have the right network, or I don't have this. I'm gonna wait till I have this, and then if I have this and this, and it just goes on and on and on. By the time you look around, it's 10 years. And then, so don't let speed be your barometer either. I think you just have to just kind of say, it always helps, I feel like, to write down your goals, because sometimes you can have so many different goals and things you want to do, and it's like a million things in your head, just like a to-do list. A friend of mine and I used to talk about this all the time, but when you write it down, instead of it being 2,000 things, it's really 20 things. So it's like, okay, if I have 20 things that I'm thinking about doing during the span of my lifetime, then let me see how I can break this up. Maybe in the next 2 years, I can accomplish this. Maybe in the next 5 years, I can do this. And then you just kind of plan it out. And then you just kind of look. And if you're at that 5-year mark and you see you haven't touched that, then you have to ask yourself, why didn't I? And then you just start making markers that are a little bit closer. Like, don't just wait for the 5 years. It's like, by this time next year, I want to see this, 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 and this. And then, by the best of your ability, by the grace of God. And then when you see them happen, you're like, okay, great, I'm on the roll. And when you see it's not, you start asking yourself questions. Is there something that I'm not doing? Or is it, do I need help? Do I need a coach? Like, what do I need? And I think that's just like an internal check you just need to do. That'll help you get rid of the procrastination spirit that can fall on you. You just really have to just always check yourself.
Okay. So I was actually thinking of asking a fear question, and then my lovely sister Janelle asked the question. So her question is, how do you overcome the fear of not being fully prepared in your business, just in case you start getting many orders? And I'm assuming she's maybe talking about something that is, order based.
Okay. Want to make sure I understood, and I'm looking at the chat now. So how do you overcome the fear of not being fully prepared in your business, just in case you start getting many orders? I think, again, fear can be crippling, and you don't want to live in it. So I'll say that. But what you can do is prepare for things. So if you know that you started your business and you're trying to fulfill orders or handle requests for sessions, things of that nature, the best thing to do is to kind of like go back. And what I mean by that is do all that you can to prepare yourself. In my line of work or in any kind of situation, I always think of worst case scenario. Not that I'm a pessimist, but I'm always like, okay, if all of this falls apart, what could I do to handle it? Like troubleshooting. Like I troubleshoot before there's trouble, just ahead of time, because I just don't want to be in a situation where, okay, I didn't prepare for disaster and now I don't know what to do. So I think in this case, if what she's saying, if Janelle, what you're saying is you're afraid of it, then what can you do now to prohibit that? Do you kind of maybe since you know that you may have like an overflow of orders, you can probably prep your audience on IG and say, hey everybody, we've had an influx of orders, we want to try to get to everybody. Maybe we'll excuse me, maybe what we'll do is we're going to have a little bit delay in terms of deliveries, but we're going to make sure we get to everybody. And then you just kind of let your customers know ahead of time that there might be a problem or an issue, and then just go from there. And then while that's happening, you make sure that for the next time you put in systems in place so that this doesn't happen again, or you have support to help you so that you're not doing it on your own, or because it's hard when you're trying to be an entrepreneur or solopreneur and do it by yourself. You don't want to be in that situation. So the best thing to do is to just prepare for it. Get through the season now where you might be approaching it. If you have that little inkling inside, usually that's a sign that, okay, there's something that's wrong with my system. Because if you're afraid of it, it's like coming up. It's like, okay, let me pay attention to that. Let me not ignore it, but let me do something about it so I don't have to live here.
That's right. Following your inner voice, inner voice.
Yes.
Okay. Claire is asking, do you have any resources that you would recommend someone who is new to the entertainment industry?
Wow. I'm going to show my age a little bit here.
Hey, we're sisters.
Exactly. So I remember first getting into the industry I'm in now, and at that time you had to go to the library, you had to go to get books and everything else. And I have to say, the internet has just flattened the curve for everybody. It's amazing. So if you're looking for resources, I mean, you could start with, definitely doing research online. There's certain people you see on IG that you can follow, but, don't, how do I say this in a nice way? Don't be fooled by everything you see on social media. As people say, no one's posting their failures. They're posting their smiles. Right. I'm on the red carpet now. This is really great. You don't see any of the other stuff that's happening, pulling out my hair. I can't believe it's going on. What's going on? You don't want that. So the first thing I would do is just do your own research. Find one person that you admire in the industry that you're trying to get into, and just read up about them. Like figure out like how they got into the industry, find out like their challenges, because people who are honest are going to tell you like this wasn't an easy road. Just find out what they did. What has happened, I know over the years, a lot of people kind of, reach out to people in terms of, finding a mentor. Sometimes that can or cannot work. The other thing is maybe trying to shadow people as well. Now, of course, we're in the midst of the situation we're in now with the pandemic, but I would start with just identifying one person or a couple of people who are doing what you want to do, and just see what their path was like, if that makes sense. I think that's quite helpful. And then definitely follow industry organizations, go on their websites, go on their LinkedIn pages, see what they're posting, read their press releases, just to kind of get insight into what they're doing. Most companies find a way to not just stay in one lane. You'd be surprised the products that are under one brand, and you're looking at a cake mix, but you don't know they also make bleach. I mean, it's just, people, right. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but I'm not.
And fertilizer.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to, but that's good to know, so you can catch the backstory and understand how people, brands are splitting up themselves. So that's the advice I would give.
Okay, excellent. And I believe our last question for the night is from Celine. She wanted to know, is the book being offered on any other platform?
Thank you so much. Right now, it's only on Amazon. You'll see it's just a paperback. An e-version for now, and the paperback version will come out pretty soon, within another month or so. So for now, it's Amazon. I'll see as I go along, but I just wanted to kind of, push it out of me for right now. I just felt it was time, and I'll see what happens as we go.
Yeah, so really what Sheila's telling you all to do in the audience is go and buy her book so that she can put it on multiple platforms, including We Buy Black. So thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
I was reading in the chat a couple of things, and one person had mentioned they were talking about a lawyer with starting a business. So we also want to encourage everybody to also go back and listen to all of the previous talks that we had. And on Sunday, we were speaking, or was it Monday? Mr. Phillips was talking about what is it important to have a lawyer in your business. So that's something that we should also think about. Looking at this one again. So if any of your friends were not able to participate right now, there is a replay later. So have them make sure that they look out the replay. And Sheila, thank you so much. We love you. We love you. We hope to see you again very, very soon.
Thank
And
you.
also in person. So thinking about, as the years, we're hoping that this is not going to maintain itself for too much longer. But thinking about in the future conventions that we have coming up, we'd love to have you in person and doing some workshops with us then.
Absolutely. I can't wait. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much. And again, We Buy Black family, make sure that you join us here every day here at 6 p.m. Some will be at 7 p.m., but we're looking to see you all again tomorrow. So have a good evening and peace.